Donald John Trump's story begins in Queens, New York, as a young heir to his father Fred Trump's real estate empire. Donald enjoyed familial favoritism and financial boosts far beyond the small loan he later claimed. In reality, an extensive investigation found Fred funneled at least $413 million in today's dollars to Donald through suspect tax schemes. This early patronage belied Trump's self-portrayal as a self-made mogul. By his 20s, Donald was working under Fred, learning the ropes of an industry that in 1973 landed them in scandal. The Justice Department sued Fred and Donald's company for racially discriminating against black renters. Testimony revealed that Trump agents would lie about apartment availability or, quote, double rents to black applicants. That Trumps fiercely denied wrongdoing, but quietly settled with a consent decree in 1975, promising not to discriminate in the future. This was young Donald's baptism into controversy, fighting accusations of racism while leveraging his father's wealth and connections to build his name. Rumors from this era later surfaced, too. Trump's own niece, Mary, would allege decades afterward that Fred's favoritism went so far as to include cheating. She claims Donald paid a proxy to take his SAT exam to help him transfer into the Wharton School. Whether or not the SAT story is true, it feeds the legend of a youngster groomed by privilege. In these formative years, Trump also brushed shoulders with the darker side of New York business. By the late 1970s, as he set out to erect his signature Trump Tower in Manhattan, federal investigators found he used companies controlled by mafia bosses to supply concrete and labor. Organized crime had its hooks in the city's construction industry, and Trump's project benefited from mob-linked fixers like attorney Roy Cohn and deals with underworld figures like Fat Tony, Salerno. Young Donald, flush with his father's cash and determined to make a splash, navigated these shady networks with brash confidence. Little did he know, these early chapters alleged housing bias, secret test-taking, and mob-tainted business deals were just the prologue to a lifetime of controversy. The 1980s launched Trump as a flamboyant Manhattan dealmaker and saw accusations trail closely behind. He opened glitzy properties like Trump Tower, completed 1984, and soon expanded into Atlantic City casinos, often boasting of his genius. But behind the gilded facade, troubles brewed. Trump's casino empire was built with hefty debt and, reportedly, more underworld entanglements. Investigative biographers later documented that Trump personally met with mafia boss Salerno at Cohn's townhouse during this era, and that he hired mob-controlled contractors for Trump Tower's construction. Regulators mostly looked the other way, granting Trump casino licenses despite his known associations, a pattern of leniency that baffled veteran journalists. Trump's knack for skating past red flags would become a hallmark of his career. Controversy also struck his personal life. In 1990, Donald's first marriage to Ivana Trump imploded in tabloid spectacular fashion amid his affair with Marla Maples. A scandal splashed across New York papers for months. Ivana at one point even accused Donald of SA in a sworn divorce deposition, describing a violent incident, though she later recanted the term and said she didn't mean it in the criminal sense. The divorce settlement included a gag order, and Trump's camp insisted the shocking allegation was without merit. Still, whispers persisted that Trump's marital split was ugly and that Ivana had been silenced by a strict NDA, setting a template for how Trump handled unsavory stories, payoffs, and non-disclosure agreements would recur in his future. Around the same time, Trump's vaunted business acumen hit a wall, one by one. His over-leveraged hotels and casinos plunged into bankruptcy. In 1991 and 1992, 3 of his Atlantic City properties defaulted, forcing painful restructurings that saw Trump give up large ownership stakes. Fred Trump even swooped in with a secret bailout, buying $3.5 million in casino chips with no intent to gamble to prop up Donald's failing Taj Mahal casino, a maneuver for which gaming regulators fined the casino. By the mid-90s, Trump was hundreds of millions in debt, unloading his yacht and airline, and narrowly avoiding personal bankruptcy. Through it all, Trump spun the narrative with trademark bravado. He claimed these bankruptcies were just savvy business moves, using the laws to renegotiate debt. But critics and creditors painted a darker picture. Small contractors went unpaid, investors got pennies on the dollar, and Trump's true net worth remained murky. Many suspected he was far less rich than he proclaimed, a question amplified when a 1995 tax record leak showed Trump declared a $916 million loss, potentially letting him avoid income taxes for years. Indeed, suspicions of tax avoidance dogged him. Decades later, it emerged that he paid zero federal income tax in numerous years, including at least 1 year in the 1990s. By the end of the 90s, Trump had pivoted from near financial ruin to a new career as a media personality, publishing boastful books like The Art of the Deal and plastering his name on everything from neckties to steaks. Yet lawsuits still followed, from contractors suing over unpaid bills to allegations he'd instructed casino staff to remove black dealers at high rollers' request. A New Jersey casino commission fined his Trump Plaza $200,000 in 1992 for catering to a gambler's racist demand. The man who promised winning found himself better known for scandals, Playboy model flings, opaque finances, and constant litigation. By 1999, Donald Trump was a tabloid fixture with a tarnished business record, but he had also honed a fearless, publicity-craving persona that set the stage for an unlikely second act. In the 2000s, Donald Trump vaulted back into public life as a reality TV star, but controversy shadowed his comeback. Starring in NBC's The Apprentice 2004, made Trump a household name again, the bombastic boss firing hopefuls with his catchphrase, "You're fired." Yet even this success sprouted rumors. Within NBC, whispers spread of unaired Apprentice outtakes in which Trump allegedly used racist and vulgar language. Former crew members claimed tapes existed of Trump using slurs like the N-word on set, though no such footage ever emerged publicly. Comedian Tom Arnold, and even a former White House aide, Omarosa Manigault Newman, fueled the speculation by hinting they'd heard offensive remarks during filming. The Apprentice tape rumor, never verified, became one of the most persistent legends of Trump's TV era, an ominous suggestion of what might lie behind his on-screen persona. Off-camera, Trump's business practices drew legal fire. In 2013, New York's Attorney General sued the now infamous Trump University, a for-profit seminar program, as a sham, calling it straight-up fraud. Trump fought the case, but by 2016 he paid $25 million to settle with former students who said they were bilked by false promises. Meanwhile, Trump's personal charity, the Donald J. Trump Foundation, was accused of operating as a slush fund. Reports showed Trump solicited donations, ostensibly for veterans or charity, then diverted the money to settle business debts or even purchase a 6-foot-tall portrait of himself at an auction. By 2018, the New York Attorney General forced the foundation's dissolution. And in 2019, Trump was ordered to pay $2 million in damages for misusing funds, with a judge ruling he had breached his fiduciary duty to the charity. These findings, effectively that Trump's philanthropy was self-dealing, added to the public perception of grift. Trump, of course, insisted he'd done nothing wrong, calling the case politically motivated. Trump's treatment of workers also drew controversy. He had long been accused of exploiting undocumented labor, a charge going back to the 1980 demolition of Bonwit Teller's building to make way for Trump Tower. There, Trump's contractor employed 200 undocumented Polish workers for low pay and long hours with little safety gear. Those workers later sued over abuse and unpaid wages, and in 1998 Trump quietly paid a $1.375 million settlement, all while publicly railing against illegal immigration. Similarly, investigative reports in the 2010s found that Trump's hotels and golf clubs routinely employed undocumented immigrants in menial jobs, while he loudly denounced such labor in politics. By the mid-2010s, Trump was a paradox, a TV celebrity with a carefully edited, genial image, and a business tycoon with a trail of lawsuits, hush agreements, and aggrieved former associates. Then he turned his attention to politics, and an entirely new set of scandals erupted. No account of Trump's pre-presidential years is complete without birtherism, the debunked conspiracy theory he championed. In 2011, Trump began loudly questioning whether President Barack Obama was born in the United States. He made TV appearances and countless statements peddling the false claim that Obama might not be a natural-born citizen, demanding Obama's birth certificate. This was long after Obama had released a valid Hawaii birth certificate. Yet Trump persisted for years, giving oxygen to a racist fringe theory. The effort boosted Trump's political profile among some conservatives' birther. Believers saw him as a truth-teller, even as mainstream media and fact-checkers labeled the claims a lie. Only in 2016, under pressure, as he launched a presidential bid, did Trump grudgingly admit Obama was born in America. There was no apology or retraction. Instead, Trump falsely blamed Hillary Clinton for starting the rumor. The so-called birther controversy cemented Trump's reputation for trafficking in baseless but inflammatory rumors, a tactic he would use repeatedly. It also previewed his willingness to cast himself as a champion of the deceived. Masses against elites, a narrative that laid groundwork for his populist presidential run. By 2015, Donald Trump had rebranded yet again. From bankrupt casino owner to reality TV star to outspoken political provocateur, one unafraid to spread false conspiracies, if it kept him in the headlines. Few believed, at first, that Donald Trump's 2015 entry into the presidential race was serious. But as he bulldozed through the Republican primaries, an avalanche of controversies and allegations tumbled after him. At campaign rallies, Trump's fiery rhetoric, calling Mexicans SARs, proposing a Muslim ban, provoked both adoration and outrage. Rumors even swirled that his campaign launch was orchestrated. It was reported and later confirmed by a former Trump aide that paid actors were hired for $50 each to cheer at his announcement rally. Trump's team denied it at the time, but evidence later showed a PR firm mobilized a crowd to jumpstart the spectacle. That revelation fed a narrative that Trump's grassroots image was, in part, manufactured showbiz. As he clinched the GOP nomination, more serious allegations emerged. In the summer of 2016, U.S. intelligence began investigating possible Russian interference in the election, and soon reports surfaced of unusual contacts between Trump's associates and Russians. A shadow hung over Trump when WikiLeaks released hacked Democratic emails. It was widely believed Russia was behind the hack, and Trump openly crowed, "I love WikiLeaks." Critics whispered and later investigators examined whether Trump's team colluded with the Kremlin, citing incidents like a June 2016 Trump Tower meeting where Trump's son and aides sought dirt on Hillary Clinton from Russian envoys. No definitive evidence of an illegal conspiracy emerged at the time, but the Russian collusion allegations dogged Trump throughout the campaign and beyond, a cloud of suspicion that he angrily dismissed as a political witch hunt. Then, in October 2016, came a bombshell that nearly blew up his campaign: the Access Hollywood tape. The Washington Post published a 2005 recording of Trump on a hot mic boasting in crude terms about groping women. "When you're a star, you can do anything. Grabbed him by the put." The nation recoiled at the vulgarity. Trump hastily apologized in a video statement, calling it locker room talk, but the damage was done. In the tape's wake, more than a dozen women came forward, accusing Trump of past sexual misconduct, emboldened to tell their stories. They described incidents ranging from groping to forcible kissing to, in one case, ASA allegation by a former business acquaintance. Trump flatly denied all accusations, labeling the women liars and even pledging to sue them after the election, a threat he never carried out. Nonetheless, their accounts painted a disturbing pattern over decades. For example, Jessica Leeds alleged Trump grabbed her breasts and tried to put his hand up her skirt on an airplane in the early 1980s. Former Apprentice contestant Summer Zervos claimed he groped and kissed her forcibly in 2007. And a People magazine writer said Trump shoved her against a wall and kissed her at Mar-a-Lago in 2005. Trump's response was to insult the accusers. "Looks, believe me. She would not be my first choice," he sneered about one, and to allege a broad media conspiracy. The torrent of claims might have sunk any other candidate, but Trump plowed ahead, aided by fervent supporters and constant media attention. By Election Day, the 2016 Trump campaign had become a perfect storm of rumor and reality. Some insiders whispered that Trump never expected to actually win, that his run was a publicity stunt gone rogue. Indeed, later reporting by author Michael Wolff and others indicated Trump's own team was expecting defeat and planning to profit off the fame. One anecdote had Trump's aide Michael Flynn quipping that taking payments from Russia would only be a problem if we won, implying they assumed they wouldn't. Meanwhile, Democrats and some Republicans feared dirty tricks. There were allegations that Trump's campaign or allies engaged in voter suppression schemes, for instance, using Facebook data to micro-target and discourage black voters from turning out for Clinton on the stump. Trump himself stoked fears of a rigged election, ironically preparing the ground for his own later claims of fraud. And behind the scenes, his lawyer Michael Cohen was secretly arranging hush money payments to adult film stars Stormy Daniels and Playboy model Karen McDougal, trying to bury their stories of alleged affairs with Trump years earlier, an effort that would explode into criminal charges after the election. When Trump shocked the world with an electoral college victory, it didn't put controversies to rest. Instead, it ensured they'd follow him right into the White House. Donald Trump's presidency began under a cloud of skepticism and protest, and the tempests only grew. Within days of taking office in January 2017, Trump was already feuding with the press over the size of his inauguration crowd, insisting it was the biggest ever, despite clear evidence to the contrary. Photos showed vast, empty spaces on the National Mall, but Trump sent his new press secretary to claim alternative facts, an early sign of his penchant for brazen falsehoods. In the background, the FBI's inquiry into Russian election interference was accelerating. By May 2017, Trump's firing of FBI Director James Comey, after Comey refused to drop an investigation of national security, advisor Michael Flynn led to the appointment of special counsel Robert Mueller. Mueller spent 2 years probing whether Trump's campaign had coordinated with Moscow, and whether Trump obstructed justice by trying to hinder the investigation. The Mueller report ultimately documented numerous contacts between Trump associates and Russians, and at least 10 instances where Trump tried to interfere or shut down the probe. For example, Trump ordered White House counsel Don McGahn to fire Mueller. McGahn refused. He dictated misleading statements to hide the purpose of his son's Trump Tower meeting with a Russian lawyer, and he dangled pardons for allies caught in the investigation. Mueller declined to charge the sitting president, but pointedly stated the investigation did not exonerate him on obstruction. These findings and the image of a president leaning on subordinates to protect himself fueled intense debate. Trump lambasted Mueller's inquiry as a witch hunt, and often repeated the mantra, "no collusion." But the detailed evidence of shady behavior lingered in the public record. For the first time in U.S. history, a special counsel had scrutinized a president for possibly conspiring with a foreign adversary and obstructing justice. While in office, an astonishing controversy that might have defined any other presidency. For Trump, it was just one of many fires burning. Another hallmark of Trump's administration was his seeming disregard for traditional ethics and nepotism concerns. He brought family members into the White House, naming daughter Ivanka Trump and son-in-law Jared Kushner as senior advisors. Ethicists cried foul, arguing this violated the spirit of federal anti-nepotism law. The Justice Department's lawyers found a loophole to allow it. But criticism mounted as Ivanka and Jared took on expansive portfolios from Middle East peace to criminal justice reform. Despite their lack of government experience, they also retained extensive business holdings. Watchdogs documented how foreign governments, from China to Qatar, granted favors or trademarks to the Kushner-Trump businesses while the couple served in government. This played into broader allegations that Trump was profiting off the presidency. He brazenly broke with precedent by refusing to divest from the Trump Organization or release his tax returns. Instead, he kept ownership of his companies and then frequently spent weekends at Trump-branded properties, effectively funneling taxpayer and donor money to his resorts. Crew, a DC watchdog, later tallied 3,700 conflicts of interest, noting that Trump's hotels hosted foreign officials and lobbyists seeking to curry favor. For instance, the Saudi government and other Middle Eastern delegations booked blocks of rooms at Trump's DC hotel, and Trump's Mar-a-Lago club doubled its membership fee after he became president, monetizing the access. Lawsuits were filed accusing Trump of violating the Emoluments Clause, a constitutional ban on foreign payments to U.S. officials, but his legal team fought them and courts ultimately dismissed the cases on technical grounds. Still, media reports throughout his term highlighted the blurring of public duty and private gain from U.S. military personnel being inexplicably booked at Trump's Scottish golf resort, to Vice President Pence staying at a Trump hotel in Ireland far from his meeting site, to Trump trying and failing to award a major international summit to his own Doral resort. Trump shrugged off the criticism, famously saying the presidency was costing him money, though internal tax records later suggested otherwise. By 2019, the chaos had only escalated. That spring, Mueller's report became public, and though Trump escaped criminal indictment, he claimed total vindication in the face of considerable damning detail. Meanwhile, new scandals emerged. A whistleblower came forward alleging that Trump had used the powers of his office to pressure a foreign nation to smear a political rival. Specifically, in a July 2019 phone call, Trump asked Ukraine's president to do us a favor and investigate former Vice President Joe Biden, then a likely 2020 opponent, and Biden's son. At the same time, Trump had mysteriously frozen $400 million in military aid to Ukraine. The implication was clear: a quid pro quo of dirt $4. This explosive charge that Trump solicited foreign interference in the upcoming election led the House of Representatives to launch an impeachment inquiry and televised hearings. Diplomats and officials testified that Trump and his envoy lawyer Rudy Giuliani ran a shadow diplomacy effort in Ukraine aimed at concocting an investigation of the Bidens. One top diplomat emailed it was crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign. In December 2019, Trump was impeached by the House on 2 articles: abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The evidence showed he withheld congressionally approved aid to Ukraine to pressure for the Biden probe. It was a dramatic moment, Trump, the third U.S. president ever impeached. Yet, in February 2020, he was acquitted in the Senate along party lines. Republicans, even some who acknowledged Trump's conduct was wrong, argued it wasn't enough to warrant removal from office. Trump crowed over the vindication, but the stain of impeachment remained, and a foreshadowing pattern had emerged. Trump continually pushed the envelope of ethical and legal behavior, betting that partisan loyalty and his own brazen denials would carry him through. 2020 tested Trump like no year before and saw controversies crescendo into an unprecedented national rupture. First came the COVID-19 pandemic, which Trump initially downplayed. In January and February 2020, as the coronavirus spread globally, Trump assured the public we have it totally under control and that it would disappear like a miracle. But in a private February interview, he admitted the virus was deadly stuff, while still publicly comparing it to the flu. This disconnect between Trump's secret knowledge and public minimization became a scandal of its own when revealed months later As cases exploded in March, Trump grudgingly accepted shutdowns, but often undermined his own health experts. He touted unproven treatments like hydroxychloroquine, and in an infamous April 2020 briefing, mused about whether injecting disinfectant could kill the virus inside the body, a dangerously absurd suggestion that drew immediate warnings from doctors and forced Lysol's manufacturer to issue a statement imploring people not to ingest cleaning products. Trump later claimed he was being sarcastic, but by then his chaotic COVID response was under heavy fire. Reports emerged of dysfunction, states bidding against each other for ventilators, Trump sidelining and insulting top scientist, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and a consistent pattern of downplaying the pandemic's severity, even as US death tolls soared. When Trump himself caught COVID-19 in October 2020, he was flown to Walter Reed Hospital and given experimental therapies. Rumors swirled that his condition was worse than disclosed. He had alarming oxygen drops and at one point required supplemental oxygen. Facts the White House tried to obscure. After a quick recovery, Trump returned to the White House and dramatically removed his mask for a photo op, urging Americans not to let COVID dominate their lives. Critics accused him of gross mismanagement that cost lives, noting the US had one of the world's worst outbreaks. Whispers even emerged, questioning Trump's own health and fitness. After one appearance, where he struggled with a glass of water and walked unsteadily down a ramp, armchair diagnosticians speculated about neurological issues. Trump angrily denied having had any mini-strokes, a random denial that only fueled that rumor. By late 2020, with over 300,000 Americans dead of COVID, Trump's presidency was engulfed in crisis. Then came the election storm of 2021, when Joe Biden defeated Trump in November. Trump refused to concede. He instead launched a relentless campaign to overturn the results, making outright false claims of massive voter fraud. In truth, the Department of Homeland Security declared this was the most secure election ever, and no evidence of significant fraud was found by dozens of judges, many of them Republican-appointed, who rejected Trump's lawsuits. But Trump's refusal to accept defeat metastasized into a movement, the so-called Big Lie, that the election was stolen. Throughout November and December 2020, Trump pressured state officials. In Georgia, he infamously called Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and implored him to find 11,780 votes to flip the state to Trump, which Raffensperger flatly refused, later calling the ask a threat. Trump invited Michigan legislators to the White House to coax them into voiding Biden's win there, and he cheered on supporters who protested outside election offices. As court defeat after defeat piled up over 60 legal losses, Trump turned to an unprecedented option, pressuring his own vice president and Congress to reject certified electoral votes on January 6, 2021. He summoned his followers to D.C. that day, tweeting "Big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there, will be wild." The result was the darkest controversy of Trump's tenure, the January 6th Capitol riot. On that morning, Trump rallied a crowd of thousands near the White House, urging them to march to the Capitol and fight like hell to stop the steal. Whipped into a frenzy by months of false election claims, a large mob, some armed, many wearing Trump gear or wielding Trump flags, stormed past police and violently breached the U.S. Capitol as Congress met to certify Biden's win. The world watched in shock as rioters smashed windows, invaded the Senate chamber, and roamed lawmakers' offices. Amid the chaos, Trump initially resisted calls to intervene. Aides later revealed that for 187 minutes, Trump mostly watched the riot on TV, ignoring pleas to tell his supporters to stand down. When he finally released a video, he told the insurrectionists, "Go home, we love you, you're very special." 5 people died in or soon after the attack, and many more were injured. Instantly, accusations of incitement were leveled at Trump. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and others said the president had essentially unleashed an attempted coup. Chatter arose about Trump's ties to far-right extremist groups present that day. the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, with congressional investigators later uncovering that some extremist leaders believed they were following Trump's orders, though no evidence emerged that Trump directly coordinated with these groups. The rumor that he had secret involvement with the rioters, or was at least sympathetic to their aims, gained traction in the aftermath. Former aides testified that Trump, in the hours after the violence, privately resisted calling it off and even mused that the rioters were defending him. Within a week, on January 13, 2021, the House impeached Donald Trump a second time for incitement of insurrection. 10 Republicans joined Democrats in voting to charge him, making it the most bipartisan impeachment in U.S. history. In February, after Trump had left office, the Senate held a trial. A majority 57 senators voted to convict, including 7 Republicans, but it fell short of the 2/3 needed. Trump was acquitted again though. This time even the Senate Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, declared Trump responsible for the assault, while arguing the Senate couldn't punish a former president. The January 6th attack, and Trump's role in it, marked a rupture. Never before had an American president refused a peaceful transfer of power or spurred a violent attempt to block it. The stain of January 6th and the big lie of a stolen election became central to Trump's legacy as he departed Washington on the morning of Biden's inauguration. Boycotting the ceremony, Trump faced not only disgrace in the eyes of many, but a slew of legal exposures that would soon come roaring back. Freed from the Oval Office, but not from the spotlight, Donald Trump entered his post-presidency, facing a minefield of investigations. Within months, he was under scrutiny in multiple jurisdictions, a citizen once more, but one with unparalleled notoriety. Perhaps the most dramatic moment came on August 8, 2022, when the FBI executed a search warrant at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. In an astonishing scene, federal agents retrieved boxes of classified documents that Trump had taken with him upon leaving the White House and refused to fully return. Among the materials were documents marked Top Secret SCI, strewn in boxers, and even in unsecured areas like a storage room and a bathroom. A Justice Department photo attached to a court filing showed sensitive documents with bright, secret and top secret covers spread on a floral carpet, an image that quickly went viral. Trump insisted he had declassified everything without documentation and called the FBI's evidence photo misleading. Nonetheless, the incident sparked a criminal investigation into potential mishandling of national security information and obstruction of justice. Never before had a former U.S. president's home been searched for stolen state secrets, and it kicked off a new round of furious debate. Trump's supporters decried the raid as political persecution, while critics noted that no other official, when asked, had ever simply kept classified files, let alone hundreds of them in their country club basement. The probe eventually led to Trump being federally indicted in June 2023 on dozens of counts related to retaining defense information and obstructing the government's efforts to reclaim it. It was a historic first. Trump became the only U.S. president ever charged with a criminal offense, and that was just one of several cases. In March 2023, a New York grand jury indicted Trump on state charges connected to the hush money payoff to Stormy Daniels during 2016, alleging that Trump falsified business records to cover up an illegal campaign expenditure. This was the first indictment and arrest of a former president, complete with Trump's fingerprinting and booking in a Manhattan courthouse. He pled not guilty and blasted the Democratic prosecutor. But the image of Trump, flanked by lawyers in a courtroom, was indelible. By summer 2023, more shoes dropped. A Washington, D.C. grand jury, led by special counsel Jack Smith, indicted Trump for conspiracy to defraud the United States and obstructing an official proceeding, essentially, for his multi-pronged attempt to overturn the 2020 election, culminating in the January 6th insurrection. Separately, in Georgia, Fulton County's district attorney charged Trump and 18 associates under a racketeering RICO statute for trying to steal Georgia's electoral votes. citing the Raffensperger phone call and the scheme of fake electors. All told, as of 2023, Trump faced 91 criminal counts across 4 indictments in multiple jurisdictions. These ranged from the New York hush money case to 2 federal cases, the classified documents case in Florida and the January 6th election interference case in D.C., to the sprawling Georgia election conspiracy case. It is an unparalleled situation, a former commander-in-chief effectively accused of fraud, conspiracy, and betrayal of his oath. Trump, true to form, called all prosecutions rigged and cast himself as a martyr. But the legal process churns on, with trials scheduled throughout 2024. Beyond the criminal cases, Trump also faces civil peril. In late 2022, New York's Attorney General filed a sweeping civil fraud lawsuit against the Trump Organization, alleging the company exaggerated assets by billions to obtain loans and insurance, effectively cooking the books as a business practice. In 2023, a New York judge ruled Trump and his executives were liable for fraud, even before trial, for years of grossly inflating valuations of properties, like claiming his Trump Tower penthouse was twice its actual size, a decision that could strip Trump of control of his New York properties. Additionally, Trump's company was convicted of tax fraud in a separate Manhattan case in 2022. The CFO, Alan Weisselberg, admitted a scheme of off-the-books perks, further tarnishing the family business's legitimacy. Trump himself also endured personal legal reckoning. In a civil trial in 2023, a jury found him liable for sexual abuse and defamation against writer E. Jean Carroll, ordering him to pay $5 million. Carroll had long alleged Trump raped her in a department store in the mid-1990s. While the jury did not find him liable for rape, they affirmed he sexually assaulted her and then defamed her by calling her a liar. This marked the first time Trump was held legally responsible for sexual misconduct. Amid these legal battles, Trump launched Truth Social, his own social media platform, after being banned from Twitter and Facebook post-January 6th. The site, pitched as a free speech haven, encountered its own troubles. Its parent company planned a big money merger via Aspect Digital World Acquisition Corp., but regulators uncovered that the deal had been negotiated before the Aspect's IPO, a violation of securities law. The SEC and federal prosecutors investigated, delaying the merger for over a year. By 2023, DWAC's CEO had been ousted, its board shaken up, and it agreed to an $18 million settlement with the SEC for misleading investors. Truth Social also struggled financially, with a modest user base and significant operating losses. Investors, however, seemed to bet on Trump's political comeback to buoy the platform's value. As of early 2024, regulators finally gave a green light for the merger after these penalties. But Truth Social remains a niche forum, often a megaphone for Trump's rants about his indictments, rather than the Twitter killer once envisioned. Through all this, Trump did what he has always done, doubled down. He announced a campaign to retake the presidency in 2024, immediately calling the cases against him election interference. He continued to insist the 2020 election was stolen, a lie he repeats at rallies to this day, and preemptively claimed that any loss in 2024 would also be due to fraud. In fact, as the Republican primaries approached, Trump's rhetoric grew even more extreme. He vowed retribution against political enemies and even promised, if re-elected, to pardon many of the January 6th rioters. His loyal base remained energized, and polls showed him the frontrunner for the GOP nomination, despite, or because of, the indictments. Some observers noted an ironic twist: Trump had often skirted accountability in the past, but the post-presidency period brought more legal comeuppance than ever before. Still, Trump has proven extraordinarily adept at turning scandals into rallying cries. After his Georgia indictment, for example, his campaign merchandised his mugshot on t-shirts and coffee mugs, raising millions from supporters who saw the prosecutions as partisan persecution. Yet outside the Maga base, concern mounted over Trump's instability. There were renewed rumors about his health, whispered conjectures that his diet and stress might be catching up, or that his occasional slurred speech indicated cognitive decline. Tabloids also churned out unverified gossip about marital strife between him and Melania, who stayed largely out of the public eye post-White House, prompting speculation about the state of their union. None of that was confirmed, but it added to the soap opera aura around Trump's life, the most notorious lies. Throughout this saga, one constant has been Trump's casual relationship with the truth. Fact-checkers have never encountered a politician quite like him. He has told tens of thousands of false or misleading statements by documented counts. Some stand out as defining falsehoods. His repeated claim that the 2020 election was rigged or stolen, dubbed the Big Lie, given that officials nationwide found zero evidence of outcome-changing fraud. His insistence in early 2020 that COVID-19 was under control and would vanish, even as it raged a lie that misled Americans about a deadly threat. His boast that he had the largest inauguration crowd ever in 2017, contradicted by photographs, which he nonetheless forced government agencies to endorse. His enduring lie that Mexico will pay for the wall. In reality, US taxpayers paid billions for border fencing. Mexico paid $0. Or take Trump's often repeated false credit for policy. He claimed he created the Veterans' Choice healthcare program for vets when it was actually signed by Obama in 2014. He said he passed the biggest tax cut in history. It wasn't. That he was the first to achieve energy independence. False. That he was named Michigan's Man of the Year once. No record exists. And on and on. At times, Trump's false claims veered into the absurd, like his riff that wind turbines cause cancer, or that stealth fighter jets are literally invisible. But many lies had serious impact, none more so than his election lies, which convinced a large percentage of his followers to distrust American democracy and even fueled the Capitol attack. Even out of office, Trump keeps repeating disproven stories. For example, lately insisting the January 6th rioters are patriots and the real fraud was Biden's victory. The sheer scale of Trump's mendacity led major media outlets, after years of hesitation, to finally label some of his statements lies in print, an unusual step, as journalists typically refrain from assigning intent. Trump's war on truth has arguably been one of his biggest legacies, one that experts warn has corroded civic discourse and polarized the public. Persistent, unverified rumors. Over decades in the spotlight, Trump has been subject to innumerable rumors, some merely salacious gossip, others sinister theories. A few have gained particular infamy, despite lacking proof. One is the so-called P-tape rumor, a claim in the controversial Steele dossier that during a 2013 Moscow trip, Trump hired prostitutes to perform a lewd urination show in a hotel suite, possibly under Russian surveillance. This unverified story of a compromat golden showers tape captured public imagination. Trump vehemently denied it, even oddly volunteering in 2021 that he's not into golden showers unprompted, and no evidence of such a video has surfaced. Likewise, the aforementioned Apprentice N-word tape remains a tantalizing phantom, despite insiders like Christopher Steele of dossier fame saying it probably exists. No tape has leaked. Another persistent rumor concerns Trump's mental and physical health. Armchair critics have speculated he might have cognitive impairments, early dementia, or have suffered minor strokes, especially after his mysterious 2019 hospital visit, which he denied was for a stroke. These claims are largely unfounded medical conjecture. On the domestic front, tabloids often predict an imminent Melania-Trump divorce, reading into every frown or separate travel schedule, yet the Trumps remain married, and Melania publicly supports his 2024 run. There's also an enduring rumor fanned by Trump's enemies that he secretly fathered a child with an employee in the 1980s and paid to keep it quiet. This was based on a dubious tip, caught and killed by the National Enquirer, and no evidence ever emerged. Similarly, conspiracy-minded foes have claimed Trump was for years a pawn of Russian intelligence, or even groomed by the KGB. Notions Mueller's investigation did not find proof of beyond the genuine contacts that were disclosed. In sum, many of the wildest stories about Trump, from salacious sex tapes to hidden illnesses, remain unverified. But, given how many unlikely scandals around Trump turned out to be true, the fertile ground for rumors is perhaps unsurprising. Trump himself has propagated baseless rumors about others, like Ted Cruz's father and JFK, or that Joe Biden is controlled by shadowy forces. In a sense, Trump's whole career blurred fact and fiction, leaving a fog where rumors thrive, media and legal reactions over time. The response to Trump's controversies has evolved alongside his rise. Early on, in the 1980s and 90s, New York tabloids feasted on Trump's exploits, boosting his celebrity even as they exposed his affairs and feuds. Serious newspapers dug into his business, like the Wall Street Journal uncovering the casino chip bailout by Fred Trump, or the New York Times later detailing the tax schemes he used to inherit wealth. As Trump entered politics, the press shifted to more aggressive fact-checking. By 2019, major outlets openly called out Trump's habitual lies, something they'd hesitated to do for earlier presidents. The Washington Post maintained a database, counting over 30,000 false or misleading claims in 4 years. Late-night comedians and satirists made Trump a constant target, which sometimes actually benefited him by keeping him in the public eye. On the legal front, Trump's lifetime of litigation, he has been involved in well over 4,000 lawsuits as a plaintiff or defendant, meant he viewed courts as arenas to battle in, often settling without admitting guilt. Yet, as president, he found new limits. Judges, including many he appointed, repeatedly ruled against his attempts to exceed authority, from striking down travel bans until a watered-down version passed, to blocking attempts to divert funds for a border wall, to dismissing election fraud suits for lack of evidence. After 2020, Trump's legal woes multiplied, and for the first time he faces serious personal consequences, potential criminal convictions, fines that could drain his wealth, even the possibility of being barred from doing business in New York. Prosecutors who long held back, perhaps due to his office, moved in earnest once he was out. The Manhattan DA convened grand juries. The Georgia DA did the same. And the Justice Department, after initial reluctance, appointed a no-nonsense special counsel who proceeded to indict Trump twice in quick succession. These actions mark a turning point in holding a former president to account. Still, Trump has so far managed to delay and defer any ultimate legal reckoning, remains tied up in appeals and trial scheduling. It's clear, however, that the courts have repeatedly refuted Trump's false claims, nowhere more clearly than telling him, "No, you lost the election, no fraud to see here." In the public arena, Trump's base and his opponents live in almost separate realities, cultivated by divergent media. Right-leaning outlets like Fox News, at least until recently, often downplayed his scandals or echoed his talking points, though even Fox balked after the election lies led to a defamation lawsuit that cost the network almost $800 million in a settlement. Left-leaning and mainstream outlets have covered Trump's controversies exhaustively, some might say, obsessively believing it their duty to hold power to account. This has fed Trump's narrative of a hostile fake news media, a refrain he uses to galvanize supporters. Social media, too, played a pivotal role. Trump's own tweets often ignited firestorms, like when he attacked the squad of congresswomen of color or announced policy by tweet. After January 6, 2021, major platforms banned him for fear his rhetoric could incite violence. That prompted debates about free speech versus corporate responsibility. In the end, Trump found alternate platforms and remains as loud as ever. As of now, America is grappling with the legacy of the Trump whirlwind. His presidency and post-presidency have forced questions about the strength of democratic norms, the impartiality of the justice system, and the role of truth in public life. Each controversy, from the Mueller probe to the Ukraine impeachment to the election subversion and insurrection, tested institutions, courts, Congress, the Constitution itself in novel ways. In some cases, for example, certifying the 2020 vote, judges rejecting false claims. The institutions held. In others, the erosion of public trust, the normalization of political violence talk. The damage may be lasting, and Trump's story isn't finished. He stands at once as a defendant in multiple courtrooms and a leading candidate for president. It is the ultimate stress test of American governance that a man with such a litany of allegations against him, proven lies, rumored misdeeds, and 2 impeachments worth of misconduct, could again be entrusted with power by voters, whether one sees him as a truth-teller shaking up a corrupt system or as the most corrupt liar to ever occupy the White House largely depends on which media and leaders one trusts. What is undeniable is that Donald Trump's journey, from Queens to the presidency and beyond, has been unlike any other, a chaotic chronicle of controversies that will be studied for generations. From shady real estate deals to a Capitol riot, Trump's saga reads like an over-the-top political novel, except it's very real. And as he loves to remind everyone, it's an ongoing story, one that America and the world continue to watch, for better or for worse, with rapt attention. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the life, controversies, and swirling rumors around Donald Trump. From his early days in Queens to his tumultuous presidency and ongoing legal battles, Trump's story is nothing short of remarkable, whether seen as audacious reinvention or endless scandal, masterful branding or historic upheaval. Stay tuned, because next Tuesday, we'll shift the spotlight to another figure in contemporary politics, J.D. Vance. We'll explore his background, controversies, and what led him from writing Hillbilly Elegy to becoming a U.S. Senator. Once again, thank you for listening, and I look forward to taking you on another fascinating journey next time.